Hi, this is Kasian, and it's time for a weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world. The Delta variant of the virus is top of mind, and determining how to handle that. Global vaccination mandates have been taking place in certain countries, and the US has mandated that federal employees be vaccinated. Others are trying to determine how this will impact world markets and local economies. On the industry side, Robinhood has IPO'd today, and for many different reasons, that might be important to people that watch the markets, and especially to those in the crypto markets, as Robinhood, no matter what you think about them, have paved the way in terms of enabling the masses to trade crypto in some respects. And continuing with the industry side, AlphaFold 2 has been released in terms of releasing the folded proteins. AlphaFold 2 has been produced by DeepMind, which is a branch of Google, a division of Google, an AI division, and DeepMind has been responsible for essentially solving the protein folding problem. And this will result in a few different breakthroughs in life sciences and biosciences. DataRobot has acquired Algorithmia. And the reason that's important to us, relevant, is because it directly connects to two aspects of our industry. First off, we have an algorithm by the name of Summer AI. That's SUMMAR AI, one word, hosted at Algorithmia, and DataRobot is IPOing. Having acquired Algorithmia, we know Diego Oppenheimer and a few of the other founders over there, and we're going to determine how we can advance our relationship with them. So we'll see how that goes. Porsche has entered the space race. You can look that headline up and you'll find out what Porsche, along with many other companies, are doing to enter the space race. And in that vein, Blue Origin has been bidding for the construction of a moon base, offering $2 billion to NASA to win that contract, or a portion of that contract. And as we know, that does not include Space Biosciences. Under themes and events, mad cow disease is back in the news. That's CJD, or bovine encephalitis. One of the reasons it's back in the news is because it's been transferred to a human in France, through a lab in France. So we're keeping a close eye on that, related to potential trading vehicles that might move in one direction or another, related to mad cow disease. Mad cow disease baskets have been popular in the past. As anyone that remembers what a prion is, it's a protein, a malformed protein that results in a brain disease, basically, that cows suffer from. So there are certain public companies that specialize in providing therapies or solutions for mad cow disease. Still under themes and events, Chinese stocks have suffered over a $650 billion blow, and it continues as more pain is inflicted on Chinese stocks related to regulations from China. And it would be important for all to check the VXV Thematic Baskets channel for more information on how the performance of these baskets are doing and for additional thematic baskets. Under the corp side, we're moving right along with HR. We still have a few new hires that we're bringing on board, and on the legal side, we're still working on our US domicile, and on the finance side, we are preparing to close on a round of capital that will be determined by our progress in consequential revenue, consequential monthly reoccurring revenue. On the facility side, we're looking for new space As we mentioned before, we haven't locked down any new space. It's pretty dynamic for us as we look at how things shape up related to some of these mandates coming down the line for the virus. Nevertheless, we are going to have to move to the Berkeley area one way or the other, as UC Berkeley has labs there, and so does Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. On the engineering, product, QA, and operations side, we have a refined product roadmap, and this is based on input we've been gathering from customers and partners, including internal input from team members and groups within our company. And this has resulted to a refined product roadmap that includes 5 product focuses. The first product focus would be datasets. Datasets for the financial markets and datasets for space biosciences. First off, datasets for the financial markets, we're going to focus on including refined documentation, and in particular, a focus on 3 datasets, a human-curated pharmas by genes dataset, and a human-curated pharmas by drug compounds, and human-curated pharmas by pharmas. What that means is, first, the algorithm, it creates the correlation matrix. And after that, and I'm putting this in very simple terms so it can be succinct and quick, after the data set is produced, we have human-in-the-loop curators that will go over the relationships between pharma companies and genes, and between pharma companies and drug compounds, and between pharma companies and pharmas. Pharma companies and pharmas will be needed to be curated by market researchers. And pharmas by genes or pharmas by drug compounds will need to be curated by computational biologists or bioinformaticians. On the space biosciences side, still under datasets. The same with documentation, and we are working on 10 datasets to deliver to Azure Space. The next phase will be 1,000 datasets to Azure Space, and then 1 million datasets to Azure Space. And we have gone over on other calls why it is we can produce 1 million datasets, and to an even greater number, billions of datasets, based on any possible data sources you can think of, based on any possible row types you can think of, or any column types you can think of, in addition to any context filters. Our second product focus will be relationship network visualizations. And of course, the first one will be for the financial markets. Again, documentation, and again, relationship network visualization for the human-curated pharma by genes dataset, in addition to the pharma by drugs and pharma by pharmas. Visualizing a relationship network is half the reason that discoveries are made in data science pipelines. Being able to provide a good relationship network visualization or graph network visualization enables a researcher or a scientist to combine 2 pieces of knowledge, see 2 connections, how they connect, see the strength in the connection, the context of the connection, and then be able to either generate a new hypothesis or make a discovery. Usually, a researcher or a scientist, if you're a market researcher, you might be looking at a stock. You might know a lot about that stock or that crypto. But in a relationship network visualization, you might see another stock or crypto connected right next to, very closely to the one that you already know a lot about. But you may not know a lot about the one that connects to the one that you know about. You might make a discovery because of that, to be introduced to a new stock or crypto that you didn't know anything about, because you were able to visualize it, see the relationship in a relationship network visualization. Doing this with genes or proteins, the same thing applies. The biologist or molecular biologist or computational biologist or bioinformatician will look at a visualization and be able to see that 2 things connect, or one thing connects to something they're very familiar with, but that they had no idea connected. That would be a hidden connection or a hidden relationship, where a discovery could possibly be made if an experiment can be used to validate the connection. On the CERN side, validating connections or relationships between particles can be predicted with our data sets, and then relationships can be validated in the literature. Moving on, we're still under the focus of relationship network visualizations, but we are also going to create a subset of property graphs related to relationship network visualizations. If you look up the term property graph, you'll be able to see that it applies to graph databases. Graph databases are being used by Azure Space right now in connection to Power BI, which is a way that they visualize graph networks. We're going to enable graph networks. Graph networks are very structured ways of describing how two pieces of information connect. And of course, advanced visualizations by way of AR and XR will be applied, and working on documentation and storyboards for that are happening right now. Number 3, so our third focus would be the contextual summarizer, and then of course an API release for that with documentation and demos being provided to our current customers and partners. And then our fourth product focus would be the Dataset Toolkit, which we've talked about millions of times. We are introducing new packages into the Dataset Toolkit, and then after a QA and test run, we will have a commercial grade release ready. And our fifth product focus would be the Signal API. A lot of our customers and partners have asked us really just for a simple signal from the dataset. Most customers and partners do not have a data engineering pipeline. The ones that do, first off, we'd say about 70% of the customers and partners we talk to do not have a data engineering pipeline. And maybe about 20% after that have a data engineering pipeline that they don't know how to use or are just now constructing. So this is one of the reasons why during our customer discovery process we found that customers were asking for just a signal. And what that means is an API that enables them to submit a global event or a concept or a topic or a URL to a press release or a news story that just broke, anything, a chunk of text, and then receive a list of stocks or cryptos related to that either news story or text they sent or global event or theme or concept or topic. That would be the signal to either set a buy signal or sell signal, a short or long signal on that basket related to what they submitted. They're going to have other options in the API to provide a context, for example. So provide me with a list of stocks or cryptos related to this news article, but in the context of GPUs, for example. And we'll support any number of contexts. The Signal API will be provided to institutional customers that have asked for them. And this includes some of the 10 API customers that we've talked to. Or I'm sorry, the 10 funds that we've talked to, where some of them have asked for this exact kind of API. And this connects to the retail offering. So with the Signal API, we'll immediately be able to begin powering individuals and ecosystem partners on the retail side, where exchanges, for example, will be able to offer retail baskets using this API. We have this API up and running and available today. We just need to repackage it. And as many of you know, packaging is very important. The way we package the Signal API will determine how quickly we'll be able to achieve consequential revenue. Next, we'll move on to customers, partners, and collaborators. So but before we do, we've got 5 focuses. Just want to summarize there. We've got 5 product focuses, and this is what we'll be focusing on in engineering, product, QA, and ops. And just to let everyone know, under every product is a data engineering pipeline. This is why we have a network of data engineering pipelines that we maintain, both experimental and formal or commercial grade. Under the customers, partners, and collaborators side, we are gearing up for demos. So everything that I described previously will be demoing. We'll be preparing demos. Part of that process for demoing is, of course, making sure that you've got documentation and a QA pass has been successful, in addition to training whoever it is that's planning on demoing how to properly demo. So essentially, there's a demo script. In any good demo, following a script is important. So we'll be working on those. And still, we are under customers, partners, and collaborators, and under the financial market side. We have customers and partners and collaborators we talk about every week, a lot of them the same. Occasionally we'll have new ones. Occasionally we'll talk about a customer or a partner or a collaborator that has been in dialogue with us for quite a long time, like WorldQuant. And the others I'm not going to mention because we've got a big list that we don't want to go over right now, but we do have everything in process, from Morningstar to S&P and ongoing dialogues with others. But we are going to focus on WorldQuant for the next few days. One of the reasons is that not only have we been in dialogue with WorldQuant for quite some time, with different groups there, but we've watched that company reconfigure itself, restructure. It had to go through a restructuring, and now, throughout its restructuring, we noticed one interesting thing, that it funded space biosciences companies, and we've mentioned this in past calls. So now that we have solidified our relationship with Azure Space, we will be talking with WorldQuant about space biosciences. We were waiting for that kind of timing. And we'll prepare demos, of course. Part of our demos to companies like WorldQuant that fund space biosciences will be related to, of course, relationship network visualizations on top of space biosciences datasets, the ones that we're delivering to Azure Space. And we are still under the financial market, so demos, as I mentioned, we'll be preparing demos for Morningstar and S&P Global. And then under Space Biosciences, again, I've got WorldQuant here for obvious reasons, as I just mentioned, but we've also got everything else in process as discussed. So I won't be too redundant here on our progress. On the collaborators side, we are adding a few academic collaborators, scientific collaborators. The first would be the Joint Genome Institute, and that is run by the U.S. Department of Energy. In addition to the Joint Bioenergy Institute, JBAE as it's called, we have friends that work inside both organizations, and we had a meeting on Monday, and we'll be collaborating based on sequences, RNA and DNA sequences, first off. And then, of course, we had a call on Monday with University College of London to advance our collaboration there. We'll be providing updates as they come. And then, of course, everything's moving right along with CERN and our particle ops division. We'll move on to corporate strategy, corporate development, business development, and sales and marketing. And as mentioned, we are gearing up for demos next week. Under exchanges, everything is in process. And under IR, PR, and Marcom, we are pretty much waiting for a site iteration before we do anything else there. So we're working on copy and new design. And in terms of communication to the public by one of our partners or customers or collaborators or dataset distribution partners, it looks like Morningstar and Azure Space are neck and neck at this point, and S&P Global somewhat behind them. And of course, we've got new SAB PRs we're lining up, and we are timing things properly here. We've got multiple pipelines with multiple dependencies, from our PR pipelines to our product pipelines to our customer and collaborator and distribution partner pipelines. Next, we'll move on to questions from the trader base. Question 1. Any word back from the hedge funds Vectorspace has been in contact with in terms of wanting to start trials? Not yet. Now, what we do anticipate is that they are waiting for us to get back to them, well, the handful of them that requested the signal API or just a signal from our datasets are waiting for us to get back to them with the API and demo. So we'll be doing that. We did not anticipate that a handful of them would be asking for the signal API, so we had to put some engineering work into making sure that that can happen and tied into our retail strategy as well. Each of those funds, by the way, came from NewData's pool of leads, and we made holding VXV a requirement for each of those. We also anticipate each one is determining if they can do this in-house themselves, and we also anticipate most of them will be onboarding through S&P or Morningstar if nothing else happens with the trial. So we're looking at multiple test pools here. The first test pool was with NewData's test pool of leads, and this enabled us to collect information, engage in customer discovery, and understand what the points of friction were for onboarding, and what customers really wanted, which was, as described, the Signal API and ESG-focused datasets. But we are first going to deliver the Signal API to customers that have requested it and take it from there. Sales and marketing is lining up additional customer pools where we will have our Signal API prepared to be offered and demoed in addition to our other products. Question 2, how is the data quality maintained for datasets generated out of papers published studies? Does VectorspaceAI only use peer-reviewed data, or are the algorithms able to sort out any fake or bad data? Well, first off, you can impute missing values, you can engage in normalization or TF-IDF measurements, term frequency, inverse document frequency, precision and recall measurements, and human curation, which can solve for a lot of problems with data. And of course, everything involved with pre-processing in a data engineering pipeline. But ultimately, you want to be using reputable data sources. We use data from the SEC. We use data from Morningstar, S&P Global. We use data from reputable news sources. We use data from the National Library of Medicine, the world's leading repository for scientific literature related to the human body, life sciences, biology, biosciences. And what a reputable data source is one that does what the National Library of Medicine does. And you'll see that there are hundreds of retractions every 24 hours. These are papers being published in life sciences that apparently were peer-reviewed and passed that peer-reviewed process and made it into being published as a peer-reviewed paper from the National Library of Medicine. And papers like this are being retracted. The National Library of Medicine provides an API that shows you which papers are retracted and the dates that they've been retracted. So working with reputable data sources enables you to do things like that, and companies or funds or partners we deal with, a lot of them have their own data sources, so they're in charge or responsible for making their own decisions related to data provenance once it's or as long as it's in their hands. Once it's outside their hands and in our hands, then we take over data provenance, data lineage, data governance, and data security, which has everything to do with the robustness and accuracy and how precise your data and calculations are. Question 3. I have a question regarding the use of the VXV, the token. You mentioned data provenance in the wiki. How does that work exactly? Is the use specific to development of datasets and spotting moments wherein certain tasks were implemented to spot potential issues within the production? The answer to the last question is yes. The answer to the first question is, how does it work exactly? You're never going to know. There are going to be some things that we do include in our patent portfolio, where when we file a provisional patent, we tell the world everything that we're doing, or we lay out exactly what we're doing. But there are other cases where we will include portions of our technology as trade secrets only, and the world will never know what we're doing, just like the Coca-Cola recipe. There are advantages to doing that when you are when you're competing in the commercial marketplace. For us, we would recommend looking up the term data provenance, and you can do that on our public channels. You can also look up the term data provenance using Google and understand how important it is. We solve for data provenance, data lineage, and data governance and security based on creating hashes of the data set. You can do this with a revision control system or source control repository, something similar to GitHub or some of the older ones, where you're able to revise or create labels or stamp releases. These are changes to code. Well, that's one way of doing it. The best way that we have found so far has been using blockchain to monitor changes in datasets. And that is, like I had mentioned, one of the best ways to do data provenance, execute on data governance and lineage and security. Question 4, are the tokenomics being changed? The answer to that is we adapt to the market. Question 5, can the protocol be migrated to another blockchain? No, we would roll our own. Question 6, with thematic baskets and the $500 buy-in, does that mean it will automatically trade for us, or does that mean we get access to the search engine basket generator? And can you try to create our own thematic baskets? I think that they meant their own thematic baskets. I'm not sure I would trust myself to be able to generate any alpha of significant value. Okay. Well, yes, so we've got several levels of tiered service related to what we can provide on the thematic basket level to institutional customers and to retail customers. We're going to do this initially through exchange partnerships, where thematic baskets will be made available through exchanges to the retail trader and made available through partners like Morningstar distribution partners and S&P. We will also offer thematic baskets through our investment club, and that's going to be after we domicile in the US and of course after we get a legal pass on it. In terms of executing thematic baskets for you, that depends on what tiered level of service you're on, and we'll be outlining how that happens and what kind of wallet you might need, or how much VXV in a wallet you might need to have that happen. Question 7, what do you mean Google was founded on a single data set? Well, if you look at Google's original white paper, I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it a white paper. It's a standard peer-reviewed published scientific paper in information retrieval. When you look at that paper, it describes an inverted index. And this is how all search engines, most search engines, when Google started, how they functioned. They functioned with terms for the rows and document IDs for the columns. That was an inverted index, whether the document or term existed. Things have changed since then, but that was the single data set that Google used to found their entire company. Now they have, of course, multiple data sets, and the data sets are not inverted indices. The data sets are based on vector space methods. which they initially rejected in their original paper. Next, we'll move on to the strategy section. And of course, under strategy, we want to talk about the product line that we are focusing on and how we're going to roll that out. We described earlier how we were going to roll this out, and we're not going to go over it now. I've got a note to go over this in detail, but I think we went over enough detail earlier on this. So what we'll do is we'll keep the public updated on this, and if you wanted to do any research on graph databases in the meantime, you can look up graph database. You can also look up Neo4j. That's another open source graph database. You can also look up Power BI, which has the ability to produce knowledge graphs. We'll be releasing the demos to the public as well, so we won't just be demoing these to customers and institutions. The demos will be available to the general public. And finally, there has been some discussion related to, well, there's been a lot of discussion related to when we're going to move to different exchanges, and that is in progress. We want to talk a little bit more about that, related to why we have chosen the direction that we're going in today. If you do research on a person by the name of Barry Silbert, you'll see that Barry Silbert, not only was he one of the founding members of GBTC, the fund that holds BTC, the number one fund being traded right now that holds BTC and ETH for everybody, but Barry Silbert also, before that, started a company called Second Market. And if you look up Second Market and Barry Silbert and Facebook, you'll see that Facebook started trading on Second Market along with a bunch of other startups before they IPO'd. They traded on Second Market based on being traded on a thin order book, similar to the way that we are traded today. There are advantages to that. If you look up the history, you'll see that Facebook traded at about $1.50 to about $2.50, bounced around there for a while, then went up a little bit, then down, then up and up and up to $44 a share on a thin order book on Second Market, which is essentially like being traded on some of these crypto exchanges. After that, they were moved to the public markets based on an IPO. That's when they were essentially pawned off to investment bankers. Understanding our trajectory in terms of listing VXV, so our customers and partners have access, and individual traders, retail investors have access to the token, is of utmost importance to us. So we are working as fast as we can to gear things up toward that, but we do realize that it's going to be largely based on the communication that our top-notch partners and customers hold with the public related to what we are working on with them. And on a final note, AlphaFold 2. If you look up AlphaFold 2, this is a major breakthrough in biology. Again, this is Google's DeepMind division. Their producing a product called AlphaFold 2. It's a collection of methods, and it's largely praised for its engineering. And in particular, at the core of AlphaFold 2, this is, remember, they predict protein structures, and the importance of predicting protein structures is you can predict new kinds of drug compounds that might adapt, or how those proteins might bind to new enzymes or drug compounds. So new cures for diseases, of course. When you look at the core of AlphaFold 2, what you see is a natural language processing model called transformer architecture. You can look that up. It is at the core of this breakthrough, natural language processing or language modeling, with essentially the transformer architecture, which produces attributes for vectors. When you look at BERT, Google's BERT, having been implemented across most of its properties, in addition to the fact that Google beat earnings recently to the tune of, I think, $67 billion a quarter and 27% up. When you look at what Google has done with BERT, it's the same language model approach based on the transformer. When you look at what OpenAI, this is Elon Musk and Sam Altman's project, Y Combinator's project, in addition to other groups. OpenAI has produced GPT-3. It is the most advanced natural language generator out there, NLG. Again, relying on transformer models, which are language models based on vector space methods. So it's interesting to see how the tip of the spear is being shaped up in artificial intelligence and machine learning by language models. So we will continue to make progress in this area and, of course, showcase to the world what we'll be doing with some of our product line here. And one product line that we did not mention, or that we did not touch on too much, was within the relationship network visualization. The product line relates to DNA and RNA sequences, virus sequences, and creating a graph network of similar virus sequences, or DNA and RNA sequences. This was mentioned to us by University College of London, something that Saira Meehan's lab wanted to focus on, or at least put some resources into. And what that meant was understanding how sequences of RNA and DNA found in ice on other planets might be compared to sequences we have here on Earth, or how sequences found in ice recently. There were 30 sequences found in ice, and these sequences need to be compared for similarity to other existing sequences of RNA and DNA. So we are going to put some work in that area, creating a relationship network, which will, of course, connect directly to space biosciences and all of human biosciences, life sciences. That concludes our call for this week. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to join us online. Thanks.